It is Thursday, May 2nd. That's right. Another year is rushing through and all of that fun times. But yes, there was definitely even some protests that were going on here in Durham. I did not make them to them, but they were revolving around both Palestine as well as wages, because I think that it was part of the May Day celebrations and they wanted to see some increased wages. I think they were asking for up to $25. And I was watching some of the news people that were talking about the notion of what the protesters were asking, and actually know one of the protesters. So I've been trying to reach out to Ben Carroll for a while, and we'll see if he ever shows up on the show to see what is going on in that space. But definitely that was something that was taking place in Durham. So like I said, they tied in the Palestinian protests because I know they went to Duke's campus, and then they were also downtown into some of the conversations around labor rights, because there was also the whole cost of, or the question of cost of living and things around that nature. Because I think that at one time they were looking for 15, but then they were saying with the cost of living increasing and everything, that 25 was a more reasonable amount. So we'll see what happens, as I think they were requesting that of the city, as well as requesting the city to divest of some of their investments that they might have with Israeli companies. But we'll see if any of this transpires. And in UCLA, and I did see that Rick popped in, police removed barricades at a pro-Palestinian demonstrators encampment. So definitely that is something that is going on, as the police appear to have fired rubber bullets at UCLA protesters. And so that's something that is going on in a number of campuses. We're also seeing that in Columbia, City College protests lead to nearly 300 arrests. And looks like the mayor has got some comments on that as well around New York City, because he is defending his police clearing of the Columbia's pro-Palestinian encampment, and all in that way. And of course, in all the midst of this, the Trump trials are still going on. So the hush money judge holds hearing on more alleged gag order violations. So apparently, Mr. Trump keeps shooting off in the mouth, and then he gets gag orders. So, like I said, who knows? Maybe at some point he'll get the Black Panther treatment and get gagged, and that would be something we haven't seen ever that I'm aware of, a presidential candidate that was gagged and all in that space. But we do know that way back in the 60s, and we've alluded to that even with some of the upcoming conventions. I think Chicago is where the Democrats will be at, and that is actually where the whole protest took place back in the late 60s, and everything that led to that gagging. I believe that was of Bobby Seals, if I remember correctly. It was either Bobby Seals or Eldridge Cleaver, but for some reason that Bobby Seals has come into my mind and everything. And then definitely it looks like the Hamas delegation will be visiting Egypt for further truce talks, after the group had indicated originally that it would reject the deal. So Hamas will be sending a delegation to Cairo to continue ceasefire talks. So Blinken urges Hamas to agree to truce to help the Gazians. So that is something that we are seeing. And apparently Hamas says it views the talks favorably, and Blinken is urging the group to accept a deal. And after Maldives, another island nation, has elected a pro-Chinese prime minister off of Australia. So looks like the Solomon Islands prime minister is one that is pro China. So that is looks like Solomon Islands prime minister, current one, Manasa Sagavar, will be standing down after the poor election results, and all in that space. And China is having its own issues, because the death toll rises to 48 in a China highway collapse. So an expressway collapse in southern China amid heavy rains, and all in that kind of way. So definitely that is something that's going on. And it looks like there is voting going on in the UK as well, because it looks like the UK Conservatives are holding their breath as they're trying to decide what's going to go on in their part of the world, as polls are opening in England's local elections, with the Tories bracing for heavy losses. So it looks like there might be some losses in that part of the world as the voters head to the polls in the last test for UK's Sonic before the national elections take place, and all along those ways. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens, because like I said before, there are a number of elections, not just those that are here in the United States, but around the world as well. And a lot of these elections have various consequences and all along those lines. So we'll see what folks have got to say about these various elections and how they are even following them, if they are following them, and all in that space. Because we do have some great experts here on this network, and we'll see what they've got to say as well. And the Colombians, that meaning the country of Colombia, says that they're that have some ammunition that has gone missing from two army bases. So Colombian military has apparently lost 5 million bullets and 37 anti-tank missiles. So stolen Colombian munitions might be fueling the violence in Haiti. So how you managed to lose a whole lot of those weapons, that is a mystery that'll be interesting to see how they solve it and everything, and how it is impacting other parts of Latin America and the Caribbean and all in that space. And the Kremlin is reacting to the U.S. Chemical weapons allegations. Russia claims further advances in East Ukraine. And apparently the U.S., like I said, has accused Russia of using chemical weapons in the Ukraine war. And apparently, according to the U.S., Russia breached the global chemical weapons ban in that war that is still going on. And Israel tells U.S. retaliation would loom over Palestinians if the ICC issues that warrant that has been talking about as well. And like I said, there have been a number of May Day rallies, and there were definitely some even here in the Durham area. And I know there were some around the country and around the world. As a matter of fact, Turkey police arrested 210 at an Istanbul May Day protest. And definitely it's not just protests that are around May Day and around Ukraine, but apparently thousands are protesting as Georgia Parliament over there in the Russian theater is advancing a foreign influence bill as well. And the U.S. and Saudis are near a defense pact that is meant to reshape the Middle East. So Saudis are pushing for Plan B that excludes Israel from key deal with the U.S. And there are some folks that are wondering how this could reshape the whole notion of the politics and all in that way. And you heard me talk about Colombia, and they've got their own problems because they just recently lost some weapons. But apparently they're going to break relations with Israel over its actions in Gaza, according to Petro. So Colombia has cut its ties with Israel over the war in Gaza. And amid the campus protests, some teens and parents are reconsidering enrollment decisions. So I guess it depends on where they're going to school and what the different schools' reactions are. I know that the UNC, they put up a wall, because I literally saw the wall that they built, not physically, but on one of the other television stations and all along those lines. So definitely that is some of the things that are going on in the world. And definitely Blinken is saying that the U.S. cannot support the Rafah assault without a humanitarian plan and all along those lines. But definitely that is some of the things that I am seeing in the news. And let me get to one or two other items, and I'll bring in my fellow panelists and everything. But Arizona legislators are voting to repeal the state's ban on virtually all abortion. So area lawmakers voted by a narrow margin to repeal the Civil War era abortion ban and all in that space. And by the way, I was also saying yesterday that a major church, I think it was the Methodist Church, has agreed to allow, I believe, LGBT clergy and all along those lines. And I think it was a overwhelming majority that voted in that particular situation and all along those lines. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And in Wisconsin, because like I said, I'm going to be interested to see what happens in the convention in Wisconsin, which is the Republican convention. But a armed teen was killed at a Mount Horeb middle school, and all along those lines. Apparently, that stopped a attack that was being planned, because apparently a suspected shooter had come to the school and definitely was maybe planning to do some irreparable harm and all along those lines. But they said that the Mount Horeb police, which is in Wisconsin, shot and killed the student with a gun outside of the middle school during an active shooter lockdown. So, and some people are saying that the DeSantis comeback has already began, because apparently DeSantis, and some people are using that analogy of kissing the ring and everything. Apparently that's what some folks are saying he did at the meeting that they had about 2 days ago and all along those lines. So like I said, there's a lot of things going on in the world, including Matt Gaetz blaming blasting House anti-Semitism legislation as ridiculous hate speech bill and all along those lines. And Marjorie Taylor Greene votes against the bill to combat anti-Semitism and invokes an anti-Semitic trope in her reasoning and all along those lines. So definitely it'll be interesting to see what folks got to say about a number of these things, including the fact that a fifth body was recovered from the site of the Key Bridge collapse. And that was some time back, but they just recently recovered a new body in that situation. And Trump gives his strongman ambitions free rein on a day off from the court. So Trump says he will only accept 2024 election results if everything's honest. So apparently Trump again won't commit to accepting the presidential election results and all along those lines. So my guess is that if he loses, he will not accept it. If he wins, then of course he will accept it. If that's not the epitome of kind of the person that wants to only have his way and his way alone, I don't know what is and everything. But I've got Rick Rosner, and I've also got Sasha Star with me, and we've got others, hopefully, like Nick, that'll be joining, and we'll see where the conversation goes. And Nick, I've got a question for you, and then y'all can take your conversation wherever you want to and everything. But how does an entire army, even if it's a small country, manage to lose a whole bunch of bullets and everything? Because I would think that you would have that stuff locked down and everything. But whenever
you think.
Colombia, but a whole lot of bullets to be just like letting walk off.
I have no idea. Usually they have what they call asset managers that make sure that these assets are protected. But I was never part of the military, so I have no expertise in the area. We do have a couple of people, Chris Greco and John Lockwood, who are both in the military. We could ask them about how they would lose it. Now, this is meant for Sashi. You probably didn't read this, but I have to give him this thing. This comes from Northwestern University. Now, I will tell you, Northwestern University is located in Evanston, Illinois. The university I taught at for 12 years is Northeastern University, which is in Boston, Massachusetts, where I was an adjunct professor for the graduate tax program for nearly 12 years until they discontinued the program. All right, but let's talk about Northwestern. Okay, there was this riots on the campus or whatever the heck they were doing, the kids on campus. And then they entered into, now this is a purported settlement agreement. I'm not sure if this is valid, but if it is, this really got me Irish up. Okay, so the university agreed to this. And I didn't mind all the other agreements. This really bothered me. They were going to give 5 Palestinians full scholarships and 2 faculty members added to the university. And I just fell out of my chair. I was going like, this is so wrong. It makes me not want to make sure my grandkids go to Northwestern University if they enter into this agreement. Okay, why is it wrong? Okay, so these people that protest, now Jatovi's right. Well, I guess protesting works. It's like a form of blackmail. It's a form of extortion. They get in there and all of a sudden 5 people that may not be qualified to even go to college, all of a sudden, oh, you're Palestinian, so you get a full scholarship. Now, what about all the other hardworking kids? What about the other kids that starve to death? Oh, forget them. Those are U.S. citizens. We don't care about them. What about, why are there 2 faculty members on Northwestern? If this is true, this is an abomination by our educational system.
But
so,
Nick, there's been
I just have to confirm first it's true.
You have to confirm it first, but Nick,
you
got to confirm it
if
first.
If it is true, the universities really need to have their heads examined.
But Nick, there have been programs that have existed.
Northwestern University. Goodbye, Northwestern
don't
University.
you think that it will encourage Latino students and Chinese students and Jewish students and Ukrainian students and Irish students and Italian students all going for protesting and get some scholarships?
Exactly.
Exactly.
By
the way, I saw on television what's happened in Los Angeles. How police in Los Angeles very quickly dismantled all these stands. So I'm wondering, these protesters in Los Angeles or Colombia, are they getting scholarships too or not? Also, I think their sponsors are upset because they didn't fight with police at all. So they are paying money to protest. They're paying money to fight. They failed. They didn't fight. The police screwed them one by another, put them in buses. These buses are not very comfortable, by the way. They should have got some lemurs maybe to drive them to nearest jails.
And full scholarships. Full scholarships.
But hold on a second. Nick and Sasha, there are scholarships that are offered to various folks. There are Asian folks that get scholarships. There are different scholarships that exist. And like I said, I'd have to see what the agreement was and why they gave the agreement. But there are different scholarships.
Oh, you got to check this
for
out.
different reasons, and it's not just sports and academic scholarships. Yes, there are people that get scholarships. I have said before, and I will not hide it. I got the EOP scholarship to go to Marquette, which was a scholarship for either students that were minorities or that had certain financial limitations. And in that, my case, because
they have mental limitations. First of all, Nick, what is a two full?
The faculty.
Yeah, what's that?
Okay, I mean, the thing is, what happens according to this agreement, assuming this is true, again, like I said, the minute I see it, the internet suspect. What happens is that the university is going to fund 2 full academic professors or assistant professors, usually lowest of the low, to teach at the university. Okay, so basically, they're going to pay to have some, in other words, like if I make an application, I have high SAT scores, I have high grade point average, I work my butt off in school, you don't qualify. Why not? You're not Palestinian. That's what I say to Northwestern University. That's what I say to Northwestern.
I looked up some numbers on Northwestern. So 51,500 kids applied to Northwestern last year. They have a 7.2% admit rate. So 51,000 applied, 2,000 get in. So like every other elite college, the admissions process is unfair to just about everybody because they have 14 times as many kids applying as get in. If you want to hear their breakdown on race, 27% of the admits or of the class, the people who said, yeah, we'll go here, 27% Asian, 13.4% Black, 15% Hispanic, 10% International, nearly 2% Native American, 50% white. So
they're already getting some international, so adding 2 more from Palestine would just be part of that.
So I thought they're adding 5 more, so that's they would make 1/4% of the class Palestinian. So I don't know that they would be unqualified. I figure you could probably find 5 qualified students with Palestinian heritage out of.
But that is not the point. The point is this becomes a racial organization. In other words, a student who's working hard, who doesn't come from Palestine, and a faculty member who
you're making the same argument that
isn't getting a chance.
Not only
affirmative
action,
doing,
but black
and this is the reason.
Hey,
Jacoby, I am so sorry.
You're making
the reason Donald Trump's going to get elected because what happens, the minority in America gets.
You're making the same exact argument.
I wouldn't send my
black people. This is why
my grandkids came about. Question to you:
this is awful.
Palestinian scholarship. Let me understand what is Palestinian scholarship. It was for kids who were born in Palestine and they're coming here for studies, or is it for Palestinians who were born here in US? Then why would you call them Palestinians? They're American with Palestinian maybe heritage or something like that. What do you understand by 5 scholarship for Palestinians? What are these 5 Palestinian scholarships? What are they?
Apparently it's for the tuition there is really high. It's a private university, something like University of Miami. The tuition is outrageous, like $50,000 a year at least, I would say. And so what they do, Sasha, is they waive the tuition.
So here's a question:
our university tuition free.
Okay,
now, I'm not going to pay. I'm not going to send my kid to Northwestern.
But wait.
Spend $50,000 on some moron. Because he protests, and this is where
incorrect.
Right. Protest gets to go to school for free.
No, we don't know
You are making up. Who are these Palestinians who are eligible for scholarships? Who are they?
First off, the counselor who just left off the screen decided to make a poor contextual, didn't even add context to actual argument, and is only arguing based on the race or the ethnicity of the individual and not actually the negotiations that took place to quell the protests. So again, you guys asked for, hey, can we have negotiations to quell the protests? They negotiated and created an agreement that both sides were okay with. Now you guys are complaining that, oh, well, they shouldn't have agreed. So what do you want? Do
Los
you
Angeles police dismantled all this campus.
Okay, let me answer Jacoby's question. Here's what I want. Here's what I want. Okay, my grandkids will not apply to Northwestern.
Good.
Okay?
It doesn't matter.
Get
Your
Northwestern.
Can live
And
bigoted
so the thing
all
is,
they want to.
You're absolutely correct, Jacoby.
You legitimately,
you're correct.
For
If
the
you
past
protest
couple of
and you
days,
whine like a
for
baby,
the past couple of days,
both
both of you,
right.
and
Protesting
Sasha
works.
asked for ways to
Jacoby,
create.
You're right. The protesting
into
works,
these
but it
protests.
doesn't work for me.
Here's the question.
It works.
But you're not at
It doesn't
Northwestern,
work for
are you?
me. So
You're not at
I have
Northwestern
Northwestern on our list.
Wait.
I
Hold on. Wait. Here's the question.
Like every
Here's the
other
question.
good.
Hold on a
parent
second. Hold on a second.
Wait,
Northwestern
Nick,
is out
hold
of
on,
there.
Nick. Hold on. Nick
Go
and
to
Sasha.
Northeastern.
You guys both complained that the people that were
They
protesting
have the right to do it.
weren't in Palestine, so they shouldn't care about it. You are not at Northwestern. You are not at Brown. So why?
No, I was at
should you
Northeastern.
care?
No, I was at Northeastern. For
So you're
12 years.
pulling a double standard.
Northeastern is not Northwestern. Okay, Northwestern
deal
is
represents
this wonderful
sustainable and
university in
de-escalating
Chicago.
path
If
forward.
they enter
This
into
is
this agreement,
Northwestern.
which is a horrible agreement,
So again,
Northwestern is a piece of
again,
trash.
Nick,
Do yourself a favor.
You
pull
are
the
actually
application.
asking for a double standard. You are saying that, and you and Sasha both stated over the past few days, this needs to end. Northwestern and
but you don't throw in the towel.
Wait,
This is
hold on. Let's do this
No.
logically. You and Sasha argued for the past 2 days there needs to be an end to these encampments and these protests on these college campuses. You and Sasha said that these people aren't even Palestinian. They aren't living in Palestine. So why do they even care? Neither you or Sasha go to Northwestern or Brown. Northwestern and Brown negotiated a deal that was agreeable for both the students of Northwestern, the encampment protesters, and actually the faculty and staff. They did exactly what you wanted them to do.
No,
now
they
you're
didn't.
complaining that it
No. Word in my mouth. Okay. No, my way of finishing it. It's okay. It was done in Los Angeles. Columbia. Take the bastards, throw them in jail, and that's the end of all this problem. Put the guys in jail, these protesters, these people
That's what
in jail.
You didn't know you want to put them in jail. And hold on a second. Protest has been part of hold on a second. Protest has been part of college life since colleges started. And it's been so you've been going to put people in jail since that has been part of college life. Since the first college ever started.
Because that's what they've done for years.
College life. Ever since you want to go all the way back to
You
the Boston Tea Party.
eliminate their scholarships, you kick them
So
out
again,
of university.
You
And
two aren't
that's
in
how you deal
negotiations.
with these bastards.
You two
That's
don't go
it.
to Brown. You two don't go to Northwestern. So
Hey,
why?
No,
hold on a second. I
and
got
we wanted
a question. This
to-
is a legal question, but it's also for Jacoby because I know he's got some ties. Hold on a second. 'Cause I got hold on because it's got some ties and everything.
Your
'Cause one of
words
the things
ring
that we
hollow.
hold on, Nick. One thing
No,
we
no, no.
oftentimes talk about, even with the immigrants, is and there was one erected. I mentioned it earlier and everything because I actually saw it on the news, and there were some students that were very disturbed about it and everything because it literally surrounded and was encamping the American flag and everything. But at the UNC, just down the road from us here in Durham and everything, they erected a wall to stop the protests and everything. So are you all right with a wall being erected in the middle of a campus and everything? Because that's literally what they did in UNC. They erected a wall to stop the protests.
Absolutely.
What
But let's listen to Rick Rosner. I have no problem with
So I
this.
like the Northwestern agreement because it's a freaking agreement. I keep comparing this to 1968.
Oh, a horrible agreement.
Hold on. Now, wait. Now, the agreement may not even hold up. There's already been a lawsuit filed by some organization saying that it's racially discriminatory. I don't know what's going to happen. But the deal is, like, compared to 1968, which was the last time that campuses were roiled by Vietnam War protests, the protests now are unfolding with much less violence. In 1968, lunatics were blowing up ROTC buildings, and students were being killed by the army at Kent State.
Kent State, yeah, a couple of them.
Well, no, four killed and then like 24 wounded when the troops, just untrained troops commanded by lunatics, just opened fire on kids that were not even advancing on them. But
what this deal shows is that you can. This shows Jacoby's right. I'm going to give you some credit, Jacoby. You're right. Blackmail and extortion on campus.
Incorrect. This is not blackmail, nor is it.
It does. That's what this is. It's just pure blackmail and extortion.
But
Nick, and it works.
Nick, hold on a second.
I'm going to go to
Nick,
campus.
Hold on a second. The other thing I was going to ask you, and this is both you and Sasha, is that y'all have both brought up this notion of the class action suit that was definitely talking about the whole notion of anti-Semitism and all along those lines. But apparently there is a counter class action suit as well. So are you all right with that? Because apparently there was a class action suit that was filed by several members of the Arab community that also felt that they were being discriminated against on their college campuses as well. So
I'm in favor, because that's where the dispute should be organized and resolved, is in a court of law with lawyers. So the thing is, I have no problem with lawsuits. Okay, I do have a problem with extortion. I do have a problem with extortion.
Not extortion. Not extortion.
Giving in.
You're not a part of the population. You're not a part of Northwestern. You didn't negotiate the deal, so all you do is.
I'm grateful that my grandkids' applications
and wasting time. You did nothing to help.
Destroy
Northwestern.
I have a question.
Go to University of Florida. University of Florida said,
I have a question to you.
We're not a babysitting organization. That's what University of Florida said. They said this.
Do you think that in view of this so-called settlement, do you think that the donors and sponsors of Northwestern University have to stop to provide financial means for this university to exist for such a?
If this agreement held true, I was a donor, I would stop all my donations.
Yeah, what's the question? There's already some donors that have done that. There's some donors that have already pulled out because they don't agree necessarily with the stance and everything. There have been some donors that have pulled out, and that's on both sides.
By the way, the thing is, what I keep saying is this true, because I didn't see an official statement on Northwestern University's
I'm trying to figure out
letterhead.
What's the question? What's the actual question?
I think he was asking whether donors should be able to pull out if they.
Of course,
they have the opportunity. The donors aren't obligated to donate. So I don't know what the question is.
Yeah, well, he was wondering if the donors would pull out or not, and that's up to them. Like I said, can they do this agreement? Absolutely, they can. But do we have to support it as an outsider and send our kids to that school? Absolutely not. Yeah, right.
You have the option.
I have another comparison
Trust
to make.
me.
The Black Lives Matter protests caused.
Did they get scholarships?
No, but they caused the protests and the rioting cost between $1 and $2 billion, the most damage caused by any civil unrest in U.S. history. Then you look at these protests. They just showed UCLA. Use of the campus, part of the campus is a mess because a bunch of tents are left on. They're going to have to clean up some tents. It'll cost a few $1,000s to cart away the tents. The way these protests are rolling out are much, like, on both sides, I feel much more restrained and peaceful. And I feel like we've maybe learned from previous protests that you don't have to burn down the whole these protests are just I like the way they're going.
I mean, honestly, what again? Northwestern and Brown came up with a solution that was workable for all parties involved. And that is what protests are about. Protests without a solution or a negotiation at the end is just noise and people get mad about it. But this will actually led to a tangible thing that is positive for the population. And the arguments that, oh, well, you're doing this racially. Do you know what the racially discriminatory against who? Whom? Who's being discriminated?
Anybody who's not Palestinian.
Anybody who's not Palestinian. Do you know what the population of the Palestinian or the Palestinian or Muslim population on Northwestern is? Do you know what the Northwestern population is of Muslim students? 100.
I have no idea. No.
100. There, I gave you the answer.
Okay,
it's 100.
They have 100.
So therefore, it's not really affecting any students. Adding 5 more people
that are going to be
Palestinian.
What happens is
what you're arguing is
not open.
Your argument, and this is why I'm trying to stop you from making the argument. Is the argument
I can't wait till
arguing against a solution that solves a problem and creates more diversity and understanding. You're arguing against the diverse population.
They don't buy into this garbage. It's not based on any merit at all. It's based on pure racism.
Let me understand something. What I understand so far is that Northwestern University is a very diversified students' body consisted of Europeans and Latin Americans and other nationalities and so on. And there are certain numbers of those, as you quoted percentages and so on. So here's one relatively small, what you say, 100 people, a certain nationality that through protest or some other means, I don't know what else there is, all of a sudden they've created 5, not 1, not 2, 5 scholarships. So the European Latinos, Jews and others, okay, hell with you, no scholarships for you. Here, Palestinians, here are the 5 for 100 people. 5 scholarships. It's, what is it, 20% or so?
Sasha, here's a question.
Wonderful.
Here's a question for you. Do you believe that Muslim individuals or Palestinians are not smart enough to get into Northwestern?
Well, it looks like they are smart enough because there are 100 Palestinian students there.
No, but I'm asking you, do you believe that they are smart enough to make it? Because you and Nick's argument is that, oh, they're just grabbing anyone to throw them in there. So do you believe that they would be unqualified and they're just grabbing random Palestinian individuals to call them students? Or do you believe that they can be qualified?
Look, somehow they made it.
It's a simple question, yes or no?
I don't have to answer your questions. What
then
am I?
Then don't argue that. Oh,
no, I will argue as much as I want. Anything what I want doesn't matter what you say, Zatovi.
Argument is moot.
No. So there are about 100 smart Palestinian students who made it.
So there's only 100 smart Palestinian students.
So now why are you arguing? Why are you talking about smart? Smart has nothing to do with.
You both said that they were unqualified.
No. I never said they were unqualified.
So those 5 students that they're
smart enough. They have 100. What I'm saying.
So those 5 students, Nick.
This particular rule.
Nick and Jacoby, hold on a second. Nick and Jacoby, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Even to Rick's earlier point and everything, there was a time in our history that a number of universities did not allow African American students to come in. And part of those protests is how those changes were made. Part of what happened at even Duke, right here in Durham, was the Allen Building takeover. And that's how they got a African American studies, but it's also how they got some increased amount of students as well. And that can even be argued around the whole sit-in movement as well and everything. So you're saying that these kind of protests are immoral or not effective or whatever because they are creating a level playing field.
I'm not talking about the 1860s, Mark. And I know
your argument is the same thing that Mark is pointing out.
Okay,
your argument is the same thing that Mark is pointing out.
And I think they limit it to Palestinians. I see it completely based on one demographic.
Nick, you didn't listen at all.
And so, yeah,
Mark
because
just pointed out to you how your argument is the same argument.
No, it's the result.
African
The result of
Americans.
this argument is
They
bad
use that
discovery. You
same
know that.
argument against black
You know
people
it.
going to Duke. The same exact
You're
argument.
talking about the 1860s.
They
I'm
use
talking
the
about
same
today.
argument. That's why HB, as I pointed out
I
earlier,
am
this is
talking
why
about today, not
HBCUs
what
were
happened in
created.
1860.
So you are arguing
You
the
know,
same exact thing.
You're like the
that these
Arizona
individuals argue
the Arizona
is black
Supreme
people
Court.
going to college.
Let's go into the 1860s and see what happened there and compare.
That's
what
your
happened.
argument.
Oh, there's Christine. She's not.
All right,
Yeah,
let me.
well, hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Christine,
Hold on. Let me talk for a second.
Because you come
Yeah,
from
go ahead,
Columbia.
No, look,
You're a Colombian
I
woman.
think this
They
is
don't
an
qualify for
amazing.
scholarships. You must be a Palestinian. So, Christine, unless you're a Palestinian, you don't get to go to Northwestern. You have
Right,
to be
this is
you're Colombian. You don't count. Oh, by the way, if you had a miserable childhood,
Just
because
again
of
to
Columbia, you
destroy
don't
that
count
argument.
either.
How many?
We don't care
How
about
many?
Colombians.
You're saying that there's no scholarships for any other individuals to go to Northwestern. That's what you're arguing.
60% of the students at the undergrads at Northwestern get financial aid. So yeah.
No, and Rick, aren't they on different?
That's because they charge outrageous prices.
I was going to ask Christina,
$50,000 a year.
Jacoby and Nick kind of alluded to it. You come from a Colombian heritage and everything.
Yeah, you don't
you're actually teasing Colombia because they lost some weapons. We don't know how they lost all those bullets and everything. But when you were getting your education, did you get any scholarships, or were you offered any scholarships based on ethnicity and all along those lines and everything at any point in your academics? And how do you feel about those kind of scholarships and everything? I don't know the answer. I'm just asking the question.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Actually, I'm on a Fulbright scholarship right now. I don't know if it has anything to do with my heritage.
Fulbright scholarship? What's that?
Yeah, full ride. So everything's paid for, my education, my books, all of that, until I complete my degree. But to be honest, every time I go to fill out one of those applications and they start asking about the background and, where you come from, I've always been a little not really knowing how to answer those questions because I think it's biased. Like, you don't know who's going to be reading it, what their opinion's going to be. I think in some instances it's going to help you, and in others it might deter their opinion of you. But in my personal situation, I guess maybe it helped because my education's being paid for. But it also has to do with my grades because I have a very high GPA. So I think that's another part of the reason I have a scholarship.
Okay, so Fulbright scholarship, they gave you that because you're Colombian, is that correct?
Full ride,
No,
not
full
Right.
ride.
She just said that she doesn't
Full
know.
ride.
She doesn't know.
Oh, you
She's
got a
No,
Fulbright
I don't know.
scholarship because you're Colombian, right?
She said she doesn't know. But she's saying that could have been part of the criteria because she doesn't know.
It could be a factor. It could not be. I mean, you never really know. I mean, but like I said, I also get really good grades. So I think that's a huge part of it. But all of growing up, even when it, comes to employment, I've always really considered when I answer that question, like I'll stop and think like the person reading it, like, what are they going to think depending on my answers?
And along those same kind of lines, Christina, if I'm hearing you correctly, because what this whole conversation about is the notion that Northwestern may have created this situation that Palestinians are able to get in, or at least 5 of them are, and everything. But would you say that in a lot of these kind of situations, except for the folks that are there in the room that are making decisions and everything, that the student himself will not know whether they got the scholarship because they were Palestinian? They will just apply, they will get it, and maybe that's a factor, but one of several factors that are in there and everything based on what you know of scholarships.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think it's just a matter of an opinion at that point because they're not going to tell you like, hey, we accepted you because you have a Palestinian background or because you don't.
Exactly. That's my point. They're not, the student himself may not even know why they got into Duke or UNC or wherever, or even Northwestern or wherever they may have gone into.
Here's what I think is kind of amazing about this settlement. The protesters are protesting something they can't do anything about, which is Netanyahu and is Israel, what they're doing in Palestine. And so, the more extreme and loony of the protesters might never stop protesting because Israel is not going to, Israel doesn't care. They managed to reach a private settlement and clear up the protests on their campus, even though the protesters had a bunch of reasons to never stop. So I think that's cool that on all these campuses, they're reaching peaceful resolutions. You know, the cops come in, they arrest at UCLA. The protesters weren't fighting the cops. They, you know, they just cleared out. They were arrested without violence. So, you know, it's much better than the violence of BLM.
It's much better than the violence of the 60s and everything. And even in that the same kind of thing. One thing that I think happens sometimes, and Sasha may agree with me on this one and everything, is that sometimes because people are passionate about a lot of different issues, sometimes they do become convoluted and everything. Because like I said, I did not go down there. I knew some of the organizers and everything. But what started off as a typical May Day protest here in Durham, when May Day is around mostly labor rights and all along those lines, yes, they did add the Palestinian conversation there, because they actually stopped in two places. They went first down to downtown and but they were also making demands to the city of Durham. They were asking the city of Durham to withdraw from any support that they may be giving to Israel, but they were also asking for what used to be $15 and now they bumped it up to $25 because of the cost of living. So they were bringing all of these issues together. And I remember that even during the Occupy movement, that sometimes there are a variety of issues and sometimes you get a little confused as to which issue has more precedence and everything along those lines. So that can happen in protests as well. I did have a quick question because there's another issue. And,
wait, real quick before you move on, real quick, Mark, you notice before you move on, just to jump off the Palestinian scholarship.
You haven't raised your hand, and I did. How come you started to talk? Shut up immediately.
So just to point out, it was funny that Nick is upset about the Palestinian scholarship, but he has nothing to say about the NIAF.
I'm not upset about it. Let's listen to Sasha. I'm not.
What is the NIAF? Hold on a second. I'm trying to figure out what the NIAF is.
That's a scholarship you get for the National Italian American Foundation offers annual scholarships for students of Italian ancestry. So it's the same thing.
Well, I wouldn't give that scholarship either, but go on, we'll listen to
just saying.
For several times in these programs, I was saying that it's very good for United States to adopt mandatory military service. This idiot kids, they are nothing. They are garbage. If they will go through military training, they will get discipline. They will become real men and they will become American. Today, they are not American. All they have to be thrown to jails and spend their 5 to 10 years, and maybe that will make them American.
So Sasha,
you tell them, Sasha, baby. You tell them.
Sasha's going to bring back the mandatory draft, even though we haven't had a draft for every 10 years. But speaking of that, because that's the other story that I was getting to get to, is definitely coming very soon. I think either today or tomorrow and everything. Mr. Biden is going to come down to Charlotte because there was a very sad incident that happened as well. There were 4 police officers that were shot and killed, and there have been other situations like that as well. But there has always been this notion of the Great Blue Wall and all in that space. But what is our thoughts around the police, and are the police being protected enough in that space? Because like I said, I know that apparently Tom Tillis did a great conversation about honoring those fallen officers and all in that space. And I know that Biden is supposed to come down here to make his thoughts around what is going on with our law enforcement. So, and like y'all have said, law enforcement
the protection of police and law enforcement is the problem of police and law enforcement. Nobody will protect police except they themselves have to do it. Okay.
Yeah, so and you know, my theory is you should be nice to the police. When I got stopped by some clown the other day, she really wasn't a police person, but she was ticketing me because Tilly was in the car. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, wait a minute, you know, it's cool. You know, I had water down. I did everything right. But I was really nice to her, even though I know she was totally wrong. I said, I always thank them. Please give me the ticket and I'll see you in court. But see, we don't train our kids to do that. I've trained all our kids. You stop by the police, don't say anything except thank you. Please give me a ticket. I'll see you in court. I went to court 3 times and got her butt thrown out. Now, that is what we need to train our youth to do. They don't get any background in criminal procedure. You know, when the police come knock on your door, you go, thank you. you have anything to say? No. You always take the fifth, say nothing. Please give me a ticket, and then call your attorney.
I got out of a ticket one time because I broke into tears. I did a totally illegal thing, and I was like, "I'm sorry, I'm here for my grandpa's funeral," and the cops
don't
like,
say anything.
Whoa, and he let me. No, I have to mess with Christina because we have a young person here, and we do know that sometimes young people are good at using their power of persuasion. And yes, there are some folks, including some women, that might even try to use their kind of like flirtatious nature to get out of tickets and everything. But what is your thoughts around the way that the police are handled? And to Nick's point, did you learn about how to handle the police at a young age, or is this something that you wish you had learned before you came to the States and got involved in entrepreneurship and the college education that you are currently getting and everything? So what is your take on the way that you were taught to deal with the police?
Well, I'm definitely not going to flirt. That's number one. I mean, I think there's a level of respect that you need to have with authority. But I can agree with Nick and Rick. Sometimes you just cry, or sometimes you say nothing at all and take the ticket.
Say nothing.
And deal with it in court. Because
say nothing. Say nothing.
Yeah.
Quiet. So let your attorney do all the talking.
That might
people they convict themselves all the time. I listen to these. I see these things on television that are reality TV. I'm going, the first thing when the cop says, well, I got some questions, taking the fifth. And you just don't say anything at all.
In LA, you get 2 chances to fight a ticket. You get a ticket. Yeah, you don't say stuff to the cop.
Don't fight.
Okay. But then you can fight them on paper. You can do a paper trial, which is you fill out paperwork saying, I'm not guilty of this. You send it in. If the cop is too busy to fill out his paperwork,
which they are,
then you get it, then you're off. But if the cop says, but if they do the paperwork, you still can say, well, I want a trial de novo in court, and then you go to court and
they don't show up.
Then again, so I've gotten several tickets. I've never been convicted because you fight it every time.
Yeah, but you're quiet at the time. Don't convict yourself. Once they show up, be quiet, say thank you. Because they have a hard job. I mean, I don't care.
Nick, it's not just the police that are notorious for doing that as well. Because as we said on this show several times, we have a homeless crisis, and that is something that's going on not just here, but internationally and everything along those lines. And I know for a fact, because I've got friends that have gone through that process and everything, that they are also notorious for not showing up for civil suits as well. Because part of evictions is you got to go to court, and part of going to court is that sometimes you go to court and even the apartment or the landlord isn't at the court either because they're busy as well, and maybe they got a meeting.
And if you don't show up, you lose. But there's 2 trends with cops. One is there are 450 million guns in America, which is like 1.3 guns for every single American. So a cop stepping up to a house, which is what these cops did, who were murdered. They stepped up to a house before they could do anything. The guy hit him with an AR-15 with vest-piercing bullets. They were sitting up. Yes. So cops step into situations where they don't know what's going to happen. So cops are understandably nervous. That's thing one. Thing two is after 9/11, billions of dollars were given to police departments to militarize the police departments. So you have all these little police departments going from, Mayberry, from deputy, Andy and deputy, like from the Andy Griffith show, they go from that to being a SWAT team, which leads to all sorts of shootiness.
So just to point out, just to touch on a few things, really quickly, the just be nice thing. Yes, everybody's taught that as a kid. Everybody taught that. Even in the Black community, you're taught, you have the talk, but there's a problem. And there's a situation. We even watched a video where there was a band director who got arrested. He was being calm. He was doing everything you asked him to do, but he was arrested because the cop was upset at the time. We have to realize that police are people as well. They have lives at home, and sometimes they also have fears while they're out on the job. The problem is that we ask our police to do everything, to get the cat out of the tree, to change the tire, to fix whatever, you cannot have them do every single thing and expect perfection. Domestic disturbance calls are the most dangerous calls a police officer can go on, which is what Rick touched on. So the big thing is And this is why the problem with the name came about, but the actual policies on the inside were actually positive. The whole idea of defund the police should never have been called defund the police. What it should have been called is something completely different, because it was addressing the problems that the police officers have to deal with when dealing with every single thing under the sun. No, they need more resources to go out to have, the caseworkers. When there is an individual, there was a gentleman who was working with an autistic individual, and the cops pulled up. They shot the dude who was working with the autistic individual.
Oh,
that
Lord.
shouldn't happen.
No.
What should happen is, yes, you should have a caseworker individual to go out there to be able to negotiate with the people that are there. In the domestic disturbance calls, have some type of negotiator to be able to do a conflict resolution situation where police officers can focus on the hardened criminals and focus their efforts there, because that's what they're trained for, not the conflict resolution, which they have training for. But again, you're more trained here. So your first inclination and reaction, which is the cause for a lot of these problems that we run into with police officers. So therefore, what happened in Charlotte, devastating. But that's one of the most disturbing calls, and that's something that we can deal with our gun control legislation, which we still have yet to deal with.
And because
I'd rather be on basically an announcer for the Durham Bulls or something like that. Go on.
But because cops have to do everything, it means that a lot of times they do nothing because there's too much to do. Your house gets broken into in LA, 2 hours at the shortest, at least 2 hours. Traffic accident in LA. Cops will not show up unless it's a major, in
Vegas either.
Somebody walking out of Rite Aid with $800 worth of stuff, cops aren't going to show up for that. They're too busy. Rick,
but speaking of that, what do you think about presumptive shootings? Because apparently that's what happened in Wisconsin, because the person that was going to the middle school, and I'm assuming that he was going there for a very devastating kind of Columbine type accident and incident, and they definitely took him out before he got there and everything. So
that's great. That's Minority Report. You use AI to make sure you've got all the information on potentially lunatic killers. There's in all these killings, before somebody shoots up a school, they after they say, well, we had reports to this police agency, and the neighbors were concerned. If you had just AI putting all the information together and making sure that you're doing wellness checks on scary individuals, you could stop some of this stuff.
Well, speaking of AI, and I don't know, because Christine is the youngest person on here, and I don't know if she's got any desires, because some people that are young are wanting kids, some people that are young aren't wanting kids. But apparently, and this will maybe be one of our last topics, if not the last topic, but apparently there's some good news coming out of the world and everything from the CDC. But the maternal mortality rate is dropped. So apparently pregnancy-related deaths are dropping, and apparently that's something that folks are satisfied about, because it fell after 3 years of increases. So there have been several years of increases, but now it looks like there is a falling. So if anybody's planning to have a child, it looks like it is improving. And I think that Jatovi's other half works in that field and everything. So is that something that you're hearing about, Jatovi? Because it looks like the mortality rates are going down for those people that are expecting young ones.
Well, we talked to the doctor that we had as a guest a little while back, how they were going to start utilizing more AI to help with mortality rates in pregnancies and everything else that could be utilized to detect and create healthcare situations better for particular individuals and particular cultures and races, because there's differences that we have to be able to recognize, and AI is great at doing that. And, we could come up with solutions for example, sickle cell. That's something that affects the Black community more so than anybody, but utilizing AI to detect particular things is going to be, AI in healthcare is a great thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or maybe detecting early pregnancy, now that some states are ruling it out that after 6 weeks you can't have an abortion.
That's true and everything, because that's definitely something that's going on. What's your take on that, Christina? Because that's definitely something that's big in the news, this whole notion of this 6 week ban, I guess, that Arizona is doing and others are doing as well, because they went back to 1864. But what's your take on this rule?
I mean, I don't agree with it. I might have my beliefs about abortion in general because, I'm religious and what the Bible says about it. But as far as the government being able to rule over what a woman does with her body, I don't agree.
And the way they calculate the 6 weeks is you really only have a month, because I think they add on the 2 weeks before you actually got knocked up and your body was making the egg, that they add that to the gestation period. And so, yeah, it's really just like a teeny.
And so what are they going to do to the people that, let's say if somebody does have an abortion, what are they going to do? Put the lady in jail? They can put the doctor in jail that did it? I mean, is this
they can? Yeah, doctors have been sued. Yeah.
So they're not even, I mean, quitting. I'm pretty sure that doctors aren't even allowed to provide medical advice when these women go in. If they're not within that window, they'll send them home. They're like, we'll pray for you, but like, we can't give you any more advice outside of that.
Yeah. So it really will depend on what state you live in, because the thing is, it seems to me there's some states that don't have the loony rules, and then there's some states that do.
Well,
so you have to be very careful.
I'll
be in Spain. I'll see you guys.
What they've been doing is calculating how far do you have to drive from your state to get to a state where you can get an abortion or other services.
Well, is that even allowed if you're not a resident of that state?
And then even what they're doing with that breaks HIPAA law, because then you have your privacy and your health care, because that's what HIPAA is all about. And now you're talking about reaching into somebody, breaking HIPAA law just to track somebody down to figure out where they can go. It's just, I really can't stand those. It should be just a woman and her doctor, woman and her family physician. That is who should be able to make whatever decision they need to make around medical decisions. There's no reason for the government to be involved.
So, I mean, Florida, like, it neglects its actual problems. Like, nobody can get homeowners insurance in Florida anymore. So if some kind of hurricane wipes out your house, you're screwed. But Florida made lab-grown meat illegal. You're not allowed to get, what do you call it, perfect burgers or anything in Florida.
Yeah,
and the Impossible Burgers. Fighting these dumb culture wars. There might be a book about a gay kid in your library, and so.
But that is honestly, to talk about why they're fighting, that is what you just said in a nutshell. These culture wars. That's a Southern strategy. That's a Southern strategy of 2024, which is what they're utilizing. And they've been using it since 2015 just to win elections and so on and so forth. You create these smoke screens and these battles around these culture wars, create these boogeymen that really there's no boogeyman there. But that scares people enough to get them to vote the way you want.
Speaking of culture wars and everything, we only got about a minute and a half to go and everything. But what are our thoughts? Because apparently the Democrats are hoping that the move to reschedule marijuana will help them in the 2024 election. So will this be a win, along with some of the abortion rights that we've kind of been alluding to as well, and maybe even some of the protest votes and everything? But is this going to be something that can help the Democrats win?
It's not high on most people's list of things to be pissed off about.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. I think abortion is going to definitely take precedence when people make their decision to vote. I mean, especially women, because at the end of the day, in my opinion, until a man can give birth to a child, then I don't think he should have an opinion on it at all.
Completely agree.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And definitely there have been some folks who even talk about AI and making that happen, but I don't see that happening anytime soon and everything. So I don't think there'll be any man having a child anytime in the near future.
I mean, if we're coming to the end and we're and you want me to drop in a nerd moment, I got you. Because Mystique in X-Men actually changes from male to female. And she actually had a baby and made a baby.
Well, it looks like we're moving into those times with everything going on in our society.
I could have gone.
I started watching a really crappy science fiction movie that it was based on an interesting idea, which is in the future, pregnancy is hard on your body, so in the future, according to this science fiction movie, if you want to have your have your baby externally, you get this egg deal, and your baby grows in the egg, and you get to keep your pre-pregnancy body.
I think our show has to end on that.
Yeah, on that note, we'll get ready to get on out of here. Christina, it's good seeing you and everything. And we'll have some guests coming up next week. I don't think we have one tomorrow and everything, but definitely looking forward to seeing y'all on tomorrow. But we got more shows coming later today because we got Barbara Smith coming at noon, and we've got some Coco McMillan coming at 6. So a number of other shows will be coming your way as well. And I think we got the Wall Street Hacker at 1 also. So we've got a number of shows here on Pod TV. And of course, we've got new books that are being added on the Pod TV store as well. But right now, we're here to get on out of here.